Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us here in the Rochester Press Box. I'm Bill Pucko. Happy to be with you and happy to be with my guys. Hey, Spence, how you doing?
Doing great. Let me be the first to say Happy Father's Day.
Right back at you.
You know? Ha ha ha. Got to get it out there. You know how Mother's Day is. It's like a month-long thing.
Yeah, I'll buy into that.
Sure.
What do you think?
Absolutely. Yeah. Give me more stuff. I'm fine with that.
Hockey jersey?
Oh, yeah. We're starting the Stanley Cup Finals. The last time the Sabres made the Stanley Cup Finals in '99. We're not going to talk about how it ended. The Joey Juneau sweater. Come on. Come on.
I do. I'm just brought to the patch. The patch is really cool.
It's a sweet patch.
It is. Hey, let's talk. Tariq, Jack Del Rio got himself fined and in a bunch of hot water for some things that he said, calling the January 6th insurrection a dust-up, and then saying that the Black Lives Matter protests over the previous summer were worse. You to play your... It involves so many moving parts. You know, there's a lot of First Amendment stuff out there, and people saying he's got the right to say whatever he wants and stuff. You got to know your audience, don't you?
You got to know your audience. You got to know who you're working for, who you're working with, and all the other different things that are going on. But he has a right to his opinion, whether I agree or disagree with it. But what's interesting about this whole situation is he apologized for the comments. Then afterwards was also
one of these perfunctory apologies.
I get it, but it's what's happened afterwards. He apologized for the comments, doesn't move on. He gets fined for it. Then Ron Rivera, the head coach, says something about it. Then he deletes his Twitter, which leads me back to, why does Jack Del Rio need a Twitter? I mean, if, of all the things that happen, usually careers explode with comments that are made or things that are said that are, quote unquote, may have been taken out of content. That being said, I think Jack Del Rio will hopefully learn from this. I don't even know why. Well, what he believes is what he believes. I can't control what he believes. All I can tell you is that it'll be very interesting in minicamp. It'll be very interesting how long this story sticks around with Washington after this.
There are two things that stand out to me in this story. First off, why did this come up in a press conference in minicamp? How did you get to your point? Believe whatever you want to believe. You didn't think, as a guy who's been a coach in the NFL for 3-4 decades, that was going to be a problem. When there's literally, like, forget what he said. There's literally nothing else going on in the NFL right now with your team. You're in shorts throwing balls around, and you're going to take grenade. Ah, there you go. Good luck, Ron Rivera.
And next to this story is the Deshaun Watson story, which you want nothing to be a part of.
You're side by side leading ESPN with Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, Deshaun Watson's going, thank you, Mr. Del Rio.
Which is insane. Second thing, you brought up, the First Amendment issue, which I've seen a ton online. Does nobody understand how the First Amendment works in this country? Because Jack Del Rio is not in jail for what he said.
Nope.
Jack Del Rio didn't lose his job for what he said.
Nope.
Jack Del Rio was fined $100,000. By the way, if Jack Del Rio lost his job, that's not a First Amendment violation. Like, how does nobody understand? Colin Kaepernick, agree with what he did or not. He's not in jail for what happened, nope. Right? Like, everybody has the ability to say what they want to say, and everybody has done and said what they want to said. Nobody's behind bars.
And your employer has the right to reject it.
100%. And if you don't like the way your employer reacted to that, quit where you're working, right? Like, let's just stop with this insanity. You said what you said in the place that you said. You had to think, whatever way you're falling on whatever's going on, there are going to be consequences either from your employer or from the people that follow your franchise.
It's where he says, I really want to get into it. So It's in an industry where it's 90% or so African American. Mm-hmm. That's your audience. I heard it said that it's kind of disappointing that it was that it was Rivera who stepped forward and objected, and says that should have come from some of the players. And plus the fact, what is Del Rio doing in this profession anyway, if this is the way he thinks about the people that he works with?
Well, it's very interesting in the sense of what Rivera had to do. Rivera is the leader of that team, so I think he did have to take some sort of stance on that. The players maybe not around, but that is another good point. You would have thought the players would have said something, but maybe they were like, okay, let's see how the organization handles this with all the other bonfires they have going on the outside going forward. I just think it's interesting to hear what people still believe, even though they might be surrounded by individuals that really were affected by what was going on with Black Lives Matter. And I don't think any of those protests took place in the Capitol building involving police being killed and all the other things going along with it.
Look, I mean, there's a lot of moving parts here. You ask why no players say anything. I mean, look, that guy's their boss. In all reality, right? Ron Rivera is the CEO. He's the assistant to the CEO. Maybe you don't feel comfortable saying like that. Maybe you also see the reaction from both sides, what Del Rio says. If you now come out and say something, now you've made yourself a target. Now you've got that stuff to deal with. Look, the other thing about it too, and with what's happened over the last month with the shootings and all the political and social stuff, I know people look to athletes to be their moral compass, right? And speak on social issues. And there have been amazing things that have happened in this country when folks do that. But that's what politicians are for. That's what Supreme Court justices are for. It is not the responsibility, if you want to do it fine, of someone that plays a game for a living to tell people what they should be feeling and where they should be going and how they feel on a topic. And if they don't feel comfortable with it, you would have to understand why.
I would also say this. We keep telling people, keep sports and politics away from each other. Everybody said, tell LeBron James to shut up and dribble. Well, then how come no one's saying to Jack Del Rio, shut up and coach? You know what I mean? It's the same sort of thing.
Yes, no hypocrisy, right? Like if you're going to criticize LeBron, Kaepernick, all those guys, that's fine. You have a right to. Say the same thing to Del Rio when these things come out of his mouth. It's the exact same thing.
It's to your point about, you don't expect it. It applies for assistant coaches too. And I also wonder why you don't apply the Bill Belichick rule. He doesn't let his coaches talk.
Yeah.
They don't talk. It says you don't say anything to anybody about anything. This is the Rochester Press Box. Buffalo Bills are next. Welcome back. Thanks for joining us here in the Rochester Press Box, our Buffalo Bills segment brought to you by Ralph Honda. For 3 generations and celebrating 50 years as New York's first and oldest Honda dealer, visit Ralph Honda and find out how we do Honda right at ralphhonda.com. Buffalo Bills mandatory minicamp. What are you taking away from it?
I'll take away a quote I heard from Von Miller earlier this week, because, he's now taking these young defensive linemen under his wing. And speaking of last year's first-round pick, Gregory Groot, as they call him. Working with him is like polishing a diamond. Like that, it hit me right here, and the warmth grew from that spot throughout the rest of my body. Because look, man, Von Miller's going to attract a lot of attention, right? You've got AJ Epinesa, your first pick from a couple of years ago. You've got Groot. You've got Ed Oliver. If any of those guys can take a step forward in talent with the attention that Von Miller is going to be getting, oh my God. By the way, you've got one of the best corners in the league in Tre'Davious White. You've got your first round pick on the other side, and this offense is unstoppable. Like it's growing now.
It's
like,
the season to allow the warmth.
Do you feel the warmth coming
do.
from me? Because that's how warm I am right now.
Now, what do we say off air? I feel bad for Duffy because now you've got all this great nature. You've got Von Miller in. He's speaking just about every week. Matter of fact, you might as well just create the Von Miller show.
Yeah, I'd watch that.
I'd watch that too.
Yeah.
Do
you see how short his shorts are?
I know,
Von Miller
right?
show featuring his giant calves and quads.
I don't really care.
A little off topic.
Yeah, I don't really care, but you do, and it excites you, so to each their own. But at any rate, with all of this talk about this team going forward, it's just now what do you do to ramp yourself down? We haven't even gotten to, St. John Fisher. You know what I mean? We haven't even gotten to the first preseason game. We haven't worried about who's going to get injured in the preseason.
Oh my God, what is wrong with you? Why would you say that out loud? For God's sake!
It's football. You know what happens in football.
Shut up!
But this is new football. I mean, the Rams kind of revolutionized the whole preseason bit about the way they approach it. It says, don't get anybody hurt. Keep everybody whole. I like the idea that
he said it. How come you're not yelling at him?
Because I knew what you were doing.
I'm not doing anything.
I like the fact that Jordan Poyer showed up and everyone seemed really happy about that.
I don't think it was any question, right? Like, I understand where Jordan Poyer comes from. I also understand the team. You've only got so much money and you're paying all these guys. Poyer knows. I mean, these guys on the team know. You're right there. They also seem to really like each other and rely on each other. So what kind of person is Jordan Poyer if he doesn't show up for minicamp and hold out for a contract?
He's a professional. I mean, I think everyone would understand.
No, look, having been around these teams, you, me, Tariq would understand.
No, I think you got the best chemistry you've ever had in about 3 decades, and it's time to cash in the chips. All at the center of the table. You know what happens in February. You better be anxious for 2 weeks before.
So you think that's something you can wrap your arms around? I mean, that it is something tangible, this whole chemistry thing.
All right, look, before Sean McDermott got here, I didn't believe in chemistry. And when Sean McDermott got here and he started talking about chemistry, I thought he was full of crap. Look at what's happened the last 5 years. How do you see what has changed in this franchise, all because of what he's been preaching, and go, that doesn't exist? It exists. These guys like each other. And I think that equates to a better football team. I was wrong. First time you're ever going to hear it, because it's the first time it's ever happened. But I was wrong.
The greatest Father's Day gift ever.
You're not my dad.
It doesn't matter.
The good-looking man with a bearded face. Our Buffalo Bills segment was brought to you by Ralph Honda. Like it or not, is next. Here's the Press Box Trivia question, brought to you by Market View Liquor, where exceptional customer service meets an extensive selection. Jefferson Road at 390.
Hey, your getaway guy with a family getaway that's nearby and it's cheap. And what a ride. Mike O'Brien, your getaway guy. It's on my latest podcast and then some at thegetawayguy.com.
Here's the Press Box Trivia answer, brought to you by Market View Liquor, where exceptional customer service meets an extensive selection. Jefferson Road at 390.
Are you facing criminal charges from a DWI and feel that you never imagined it could happen to you? Contact attorneys with years of experience as prosecutors and defenders. Contact Ganguly Brothers Law today for a free consultation. You can put your trust in us.
Welcome back. Thanks for joining us here on the Rochester Press Box. Our Like It or Not segment brought to you by Ganguly Brothers Law, attorneys with years of experience defending the accused. Do not go unprepared and contact Ganguly Law today. Tariq, like it or not, we have the Bruce Smith, Tony Beselli blood feud.
Well, this is quite interesting because Bruce Smith, I don't really hear him say too many crazy controversial things, but this one came out where he just basically says he doesn't belong in the Hall of Fame. Well, he's going to join you in the Hall of Fame, so you have no control over that. But the other interesting thing here is the fact that he said it with, hey, listen, I know he's going in the Hall of Fame, that's great, but he had some great stats against me. I guess he's getting in because he did so well against me, so now I don't think he belongs in the Hall of Fame.
Okay, first of all, Tony Beselli does not belong in the Hall of Fame. He only played for 7 years. He had a good game against Bruce Smith when he was 11 years in, right? And that's what they seem to cite. I understand Bruce Smith's being upset here, right? He is arguably the greatest defensive end of all time. He's definitely top 3. And you have some guy that doesn't belong in the Hall of Fame hanging his hat on his belonging on a game he had against you when you were like 35 years old?
He didn't vote the guy in, but he got in. I don't know how he got in, but he got in. So now he's a part of the team.
Okay, bro. Bruce Smith is well within his rights. I mean, look, I love what Bruce, because you're right. Bruce Smith never speaks at anything. He's quiet, he's reserved, he's a polite guy, just kind. Like, he must be really bothered for him to do and say what he says.
Well, he says on one hand, I mean, he starts off by saying, you know, this is sort of a dignified thing and Hall of Famers don't, you know, do, and then he tortures the guy. He does everything that he says this is not what it's all about.
And aren't there other Hall of Famers that might agree with him? And if you don't speak up, then you kind of leave him on that island alone?
Well, but here's the thing. The thing I love about Bruce Smith, too, is he's always been a guy that just, he says what he feels and doesn't regret it. Like, I love Bruce Smith.
I do, too.
Also giant quads.
And we do for that, but I can't remember anybody in the Hall of Fame, any Hall of Fame saying, well, he doesn't belong.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're absolutely right.
Like it or not, we've got the dream matchup, I think, in the Stanley Cup Finals.
Yeah, this is beautiful. And I have no idea how this is going to work out. Because like I said before, Tampa Bay should not be here right now. They arguably, and I know this might be blasphemy, might be the greatest dynasty in NHL history right now, just based on the amount of series they've had to win. If they win this series, it'll be 12 straight playoff series. And I know there are other teams that have had more consecutive Stanley Cups, but that's back when they had 5-game series thrown in there. That's back when you only had a handful of teams in the NHL. What they've been able to do. Colorado should win this series based on talent, youth, and legs. However, the best goalie in the world lives in that net in Tampa Bay in Beselli, and Tampa Bay can play any style of hockey. Colorado's been successful with wide open ice and space. They have not played a team like Tampa Bay that can choke you out and take all of your free space away. So I'm excited to see how Cale Makar adjusts to having nowhere to go on the ice with these Tampa Bay defense.
It's funny that the playoffs this year, it's the first year in a long time I can remember this whole thing playing almost out to form. And we got the two teams that you would have said prior to this whole thing starting in the finals.
I guess my question would be when they're going to give the Stanley Cup championship out, because apparently the NBA wants to go the entire month of June before they actually decide to give out their championship.
Well, look, it could be that way with this as well. I mean, even in the series before, Tampa Bay looked cooked. They were down, tied with a minute left in Game 3. They were going to overtime with the Rangers. They lose that game, it's over. Boom, 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 boom. 4 straight, ready to go. Like I said last week, give me an NBA Finals Game 7, give me a Stanley Cup Game 7, and that'll get us to what, like 4 weeks till we get to Bill's training camp? We're good to go.
I love the fact, though, Tampa Bay's been able to do it consecutive years. Not a lot of teams have been able to do that in sports, period.
June has been a good month. They could feel the warmth still.
Is everyone still warm? I'm still warm. I'm warm.
Like it or not, brought to you by Ganguly Brothers Law. Unfinished Business is next.
The Press Box Stat of the Week is being brought to you by McArdle's Restaurant in Fairport. McArdle's is open 7 days a week with dining available indoors and out, takeout and delivery. Come home to McArdle's.
now to Eichel. He floated one. Score!
Unfinished Business is brought to you by Greg the Roofer. Greg will meet or beat any competitor's price and can finance you with 0 down. Call today or visit gregtheroofer.com. Better roof, better price. Better call Greg today.
Hello and welcome back to the Rochester Press Box. It's time for our Unfinished Business. We let Pat start.
You know, we were just talking about the NBA Finals and the Stanley Cup Finals, and we are fortunate to have this away from the NFL because for my money, look, the NFL season is my favorite season as much as I love hockey, as much as I love basketball. But the NFL is so sudden and cruel, I guess would be the word. You could have the best team in the league. Hell, one that won 18 straight games and was going to make history, lose in the Super Bowl, and it's all gone. I enjoyed that a lot, watching that, by the way. But you see all the time, the number one seed walking into the playoffs in the AFC or the NFC have one bad performance and it's over. Could you imagine what a 3 or 5 game series would look like in the NFL? I mean, it wouldn't happen, but you'd actually know which team is the best. You'd have the ability to rebound from a bad game for one of your superstars. That's what we've seen all series long with the Celtics and the Warriors. And when it's all over, we know who the best team is. And we're going to see the same thing with the Avalanche and the Lightning. When it's all over, you have no excuse. You know who the best team is. Think about the Bills and the Chiefs in that playoff game last season. 13 seconds to go and you're moving on, and then comes overtime. And Josh Allen doesn't even touch the ball. We're past it. What I'm saying is you can't tell in the NFL playoffs who the better team is. It makes it more exciting. It also makes it a little bit unfulfilling.
I find it interesting that the NBA doesn't use something very simple and available to all people that are in the world of tech, facial recognition software. How could Klay Thompson or a Klay Thompson lookalike get as far as to, I don't know, get to warm-ups for 10 minutes before Game 5 of the NBA Finals? Yet you have all of these cameras, ESPN watching players come in, all the stars hitting front row, and that this guy, a YouTuber who looks nothing like Klay Thompson, is able to actually go out on the court. He achieved his goal and was complaining about the fact that he'll be banned from the stadium for the next 5 years. What about the security? The 5 layers of security got by in Game 5, a pivotal game in which this guy was able to get on the court. Listen, he'll probably be an internet sensation forever, and of course 15-minute fame will go away. But the NBA's got a real problem. The intimacy and the closeness of the fans, the superstars that are always there. I'm just saying, facial recognition software would cut some of the people that are not supposed to be there out of it.
By now you know that Jason Mcelwain was seriously injured in a bicycle accident last week. His recovery, just the latest challenge the man known to the world as J-Mac will have to battle through. It is hard to believe it was over 16 years ago. February 15th, 2006 to be precise, the J-Mac basketball game. The last game of the regular Section 5 season, and Greece Athena was hosting Spencerport. Athena was typically good, the Rangers were typically not. So Coach Jim Johnson approached his Spencerport counterpart, Josh Harder, with a proposal that if the game got out of hand and the Trojans owned a comfortable lead late, that he wanted to substitute in his player manager, Jason Mcelwain. Harder was a willing and silent partner in the deal. It was sealed. Jason Mcelwain is autistic. Back then, few of us knew what that meant. Maybe we still don't. Autism is a bioneurological condition that impacts social development and perception. It manifests itself in a variety of ways and degrees, which is what makes it difficult to wrap your arms around. In Jason's case, he didn't talk until he was 5. He throws severe temper tantrums and hurt himself, and lacked most commonly accepted social skills. Sports in general, basketball specifically, became his salvation. It gave him purpose. Back to the game. J-Mac entered the contest in the fourth quarter, and after missing his first 2 shots, connected on 6 threes and scored 20 points in that fourth quarter. The place went crazy. The frenzy that followed that night resulted in Mcelwain appearing on all the network morning news shows. He met Peyton Manning and President George W. Bush, among many others. He won an ESPY for his part in the greatest sports moment of the year, had his number retired. He's been a coach, he's been a trainer, he became an accomplished runner, and competed in several Boston marathons, repeatedly finishing that 26-mile course in under 3 hours. And along with Coach Johnson, he is a national spokesperson for autism awareness. After a slow start, J-Mac has lived a very full life. There's no reason to believe that he won't continue to do so. That is our Unfinished Business, and that is our program. Gentlemen, thank you.
Summer season is here. I'm not sure what to expect after the NBA and NHL is done, man.
Yeah, it's just waiting for camp.
Yeah, you just take a month-long nap and then wake up and go.
They're back at Fisher. That's the good news.
Come on!
Alrighty. Hey, thanks, guys. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week with the Rochester Press Box.